Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Brokers Open Podcast. I am Dr. Ben Spears, the ambassador of Flow. I am here with the big guy as usual. Matt, we have an in the studio guest.
In the studio!
I feel like it's been since like 2019 since somebody's come in here and actually sat with us.
Right. She's not coughing or anything like that, so we figure we'll all huddle up close and do a podcast.
Promise. Yeah, I'm okay.
Exactly. Well, let's introduce our guest.
Absolutely. So this is Lorna Short. So if anybody's been listening to the podcast for a while, she's been on the podcast before. She attends a lot of the events and stuff like that, and she's coming on. She did a little bit of a shift in her job. We'll touch on that in just a few minutes. But wanted to have her on here. She's a beast. We know the market's shifting, right? There's signs of things that we're seeing, and so she's really good on everything that's going on in the market. But she's going to be able to talk to us a little bit about how to stay in front of some of that's happening. Okay.
Okay.
And so that's what we'll dig into a little bit today.
So how you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me here. I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. We absolutely love having you. If you've listened to the podcast before, everybody, you know that we kind of like to dig into how people got where they are in the beginning, and then kind of get some of those nuts and bolts that you can take action inside of your business as well, afterwards. So just provide a little bit of context. Let's talk about, right? So you've been a real estate agent, still a licensed real estate agent.
Broker.
Broker. You've been a coach. Now you're managing. We're going to go through each of those and say, let's just start straight from the beginning. How and why did you get into real estate in the first place?
All right. Interesting. It was not necessarily a passion. As a lot of people say, I love homes. That kind of wasn't my deal. I was coming out of a corporate banking career, doing some high-end kind of financial transactions. Took a sabbatical because I had that luxury to do so, being married and had a couple children. I was going to stay home for a few years until they were in first grade. That was the plan. And life shifted, so I decided to jump back into the business world. And my first thought was, what can I do that I don't have to travel, for a 9-to-5 job? That was number one, so I could be there for the kids. I had these visions that I could make big money and not work a lot.
I think that's.
But we'll touch on that. We'll touch on how to. There is a way to work smart. We'll talk about that.
Right.
And I wanted to be local to my community because I had made some friends and my children had some friends. So I don't know why I came up with real estate. All I knew is there were houses all around me, and I could be local, and there were no income caps because my previous corporate banking career in sales, they kept capping me out. Every time you make more than your boss, they'd change the commission plan. Right. So I got kind of fed up with that and decided jump into real estate. And one other thing, whether I've ever shared this with you or not, is my husband in a previous life was married to a realtor.
Oh, really?
I knew a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
So he says, maybe. I'm like, whatever. I don't care. I'll just do whatever.
Right.
So that's kind of how it started, Ben. I just...
I love it.
Yeah. I thought I could make some big money. And my first thought, and this was a little bit of pie in the sky, if we can do, multi-million-dollar financial transactions, I could certainly sell a house, right?
Right.
Well, I came to learn very quickly that it did take a little more than I expected, but
just a little bit different, right? So then I know it was kind of around the time when the market shifted, right? Well, the market's always shifting.
It's always shifting, yeah.
And you took your talents and you went in the direction of coaching, for a bit.
I did.
Let's talk a little bit about that.
So got into real estate, and within, let me say, I guess it was 9 years, went big. I was doing 100 plus transactions a year.
And this is in Long Island, so
this
isn't
was on Long
$100,000
Island.
houses, right?
Yeah. This was it was interesting.
Yeah.
I had a team of 6 of us. We were doing about 126 transactions in our biggest year. And then the market seriously started shifting.
Right.
And my husband and I always had aspirations at some point to get to Florida. We love the water. We love boating, with a goal of maybe having a ski place up north.
Nice.
So we decided maybe it's a good time to pull the trigger. We owned some investment properties. We put them all on the market at that time. And when we were making that transition, I was being coached by one of the big coaching companies in the company.
Right.
And I talked to my coach and said...
Last name sounds like Larry.
A little bit. It starts with an F.
Sperry.
Yeah. Sperry, Larry, Cherry, one of those guys. But anyways, I called my coach and said, hey, I need to step out of the program for 6 months because
Right.
it was not inexpensive on a monthly basis.
Right.
So give me 6 months to get up and running. I just need to get down to Florida and start prospecting again.
Right.
Which was the word we used a lot.
Uh-huh.
And she said, oh, no. Now you're an example of, you did what we taught you consistently and it worked magically. So why don't you join us and teach? So I
Right.
jumped into, it was actually it was a godsend that I had that opportunity to teach what I was taught. I learned very quickly. If you
Yeah.
teach math
Oh yeah.
versus just take a few math classes, you really learn it well.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
So boy, did I learn it, right?
Yeah.
What to say, how to act,
Right.
how to body language, tonality. Like we really got into the nitty gritty of a lot of that. So I did that for 6 years.
Gotcha.
6 years, yeah.
Yeah, that's killer, and
Yeah.
and you're exactly right. And Matt and I, like we know Lorna well.
Right.
We know that she, you say practice what you preach, practice what you coached. That
Right.
Sometimes,
that kind of thing.
sometimes, yeah.
Right.
Some days were better than others.
Yeah, and so you've taken that again, like when you're a coach, you can kind of coach everywhere. Now, the same way that you said, I want to kind of, I want to be local. Now you're kind of taking those talents along with a bunch of other talents that you've acquired, and you're still coaching people in a very local way, as being a licensed broker and a manager. Talk about that transition, and what that was like.
What that is like.
Yeah.
Present tense. Thanks.
That's right.
Thanks. So the company that I'm with had been hinting for years. My manager, market president, we called him at the time, had always been hinting to get involved in help coaching. So it was always sort of in the back of my mind, back burner.
Yeah.
I was still in the mindset that I enjoyed my freedom as an agent. My
Yep.
children were still like coming up through college and stuff, so I wanted to continue to have no ceiling or no constraints on my time
Yeah.
and income.
Right.
So I did that until honestly I got to a point that when the opportunity came up once again, it just felt right. It felt it was time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was
that
getting
makes a lot
tired of
sense.
being in the market. I enjoyed it very, very much. It was a wonderful career, but maybe it was time for something else and to honestly to give back.
Yeah.
To give back, like I'm just one of those weirdos that I'm not threatened by competition. I just get a major kick out of watching people be successful. Like that's
Yeah.
genuine in me. I don't know why. It's a gift, and I'm very blessed and feel really fortunate to have that. I love sharing, like, all right, let's try this. Like, here's what we do. Let's go win this thing, right?
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that. I get a kick out of it.
So you've always been a competitor, right? You competed in triathlons at a national level, right? Okay. So you've always done very well in business. All of those things, there's a certain amount of hustle in them, right? You just got to get up and get going and get.
We're going to call it discipline.
discipline. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a certain amount of discipline with all of that,
Yeah.
right?
It was discipline. It wasn't the hustle. When you're in it and you get going, yeah, you're hustling. You have busy days and busy moments, and you've got several listings, and you're doing what you do in the business. But I always saw that the core, the success. Well, somebody once said to me, "This business is really simple.
Yeah.
The real estate business is really simple. It's just not easy."
Right.
To have the discipline to do what you should be doing on a daily basis to make $500 an hour, which is what
Right.
you can do if you're disciplined,
Absolutely.
That's right.
right? I mean, and to eliminate. There was a I don't even know if I've ever shared this with you, but there was a mental switch that happened to me about a year and a half into it, where I was trying very hard to stay very disciplined to do what I knew I was supposed to be doing and what time of day to do what. And I finally, all of a sudden it hit me. I just got it. I just said, if I just spend Monday through Friday staying disciplined, the rest of it is easy. All my dreams come true.
Right.
Right.
I've got time in the afternoon, and it did. It built to that. And
Right.
you didn't know this because you were buzzing around the office, but I was riding my bike in the afternoon and shopping
love
at the
it.
International Mall and
I love it.
and in the afternoon, because in the morning, I drummed up 2 appointments for later in the week. I was done. I knew there was no fear, and there was
Yes.
some shift that just it clicked. If you can get to that point, if you can
Right.
just
Well, you said so. You said a whole bunch of very important things. One to pull out though is that you differentiated the difference between difficult and simple, right?
Yeah.
So we've talked on other podcasts about things being difficult, things being complicated, and things being complex. There's a huge difference between all three of those.
Yeah.
And so people understanding what the fundamentals are and how to do the fundamentals
Yeah.
is completely different than doing them, right?
It is.
And so one of the things that I wanted to make sure we talked about today, which is kind of the reason why we wanted you to come back on the podcast, was to talk about dialogue, to talk about scripts, right? To talk about the conversations you're having, because we talked about the market. It's constantly evolving, it's constantly changing. We know other things are going to be happening. Being very good at making sure that so when the market is really good, fundamentally you have to be on the listing side. We know that, right? You can be on the buyer side, whole different conversation. We'll talk about that in some other podcast. Have to be on the listing side.
Yep.
No matter what market you're in, you have to have intelligent scripts about how to deal with sellers, whether the market's fast paced because you've got to win them over and convince them that you need to work together. And if it's slow pace, you have to have conversations about making sure they understand where they are pricing wise and how they are in the market. And all that boils down to having certain conversations with them, right?
It is, yeah.
And so when the market shifts, a lot of times what people think is, okay, so it's shifting from buyer to seller, right? And you and I have talked about this a whole bunch of times. It's not about buyer and seller, especially these days. It's not about buyer and seller anymore. It's about how you have conversations with your buyers. It's about how you have conversations with your sellers. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to kind of dig into a little bit of that of, if the market is shifting, let's say it's going to slow down, the sellers aren't going to have as easy time of having a conversation selling their home. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, right? So this can be about price reductions, or it can be about, they've got they want to sign for a shorter period of time or something along that line. Let's dig into
not let you stage the house, or
Right,
just throw
exactly.
it on, or right.
Yeah. So let's talk about a little bit of that scripting wise, and we can talk about the words, but let's also talk about how we get that mindset. Let's talk about some of the other conversations that we have with the sellers that are maybe nonverbal, right? Because I know you
Right.
do a lot in NLP, and I know that you pre-frame things a lot and all that kind of stuff. What is it that people can do to get ready for that part of what's happening in the market? Because we know properties are going to be sitting longer than they historically have.
Okay, got it. So I'm going to be a little philosophical here for a second. So when I'm sharing with other agents and so forth, and the mindset that's worked for me is, the trick to this is to be able to communicate to your potential customer, whether you're sitting in a listing presentation or working with a buyer, but let's stay on the list side here. To use the words and the tonality and the confidence to come across, to guide them, to advise them to do what is the right thing for them to do to maximize to reach their goal, whether that be maximize the return, net the most for the house, which is common, of course, but
Right.
it's the simple trick to be able to have a conversation. And here I am with the body language and the NLP going, right?
Right.
Whether to have a conversation very naturally, very honestly, with confidence, to be able to advise people what to do, where they actually sit and look at you like, holy smokes, that makes sense. So you're not coming up with any tricky words. These
Right.
scripts that you're saying always scared me in the beginning. I didn't want to be scripted. I wanted to be me. But it turned out, when I learned what some smart people put on the page and called it a script, were actually some pretty logical questions.
Right.
Right.
Right? They were actually exactly what I needed to know and what
Right.
they needed to verbalize.
Absolutely.
And I just needed to look at that and read it over enough and say it enough. And I won't say role play. I mean, in the business we use all those terms. Let's role play. Let's have role play partners. Yeah, that's great stuff, and that is a way to learn it. But if that scares you and you don't like that, don't think of it that way. Just realize that people before you have done the work for you. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Don't
That's
go
right.
out there and make
Yep.
it up. Just plagiarize, read what's on the page, and
Right.
those are probably the questions you need to know.
Absolutely.
And learn to deliver them, whether you're a quiet analytical person and you want to ask it analytically, or whether you're my personality, which is a little more direct. Just make it you. Just
Right.
make it you. So that's the
Yeah.
trick to getting people confident and getting them to open up and believe you and take your advice. And there's times you have to tell them to do things that they don't think are right, and no, I want the marketing to do this, or I
Right.
want the price to be that, and you just sit back. When you do it enough, you can sit back and relax and say, "Tell
Take
me
a
more,
breath. Right.
tell me more." Like and you go back and you review, and most of the time you can get them to come around and see reason, because you're believable,
Right.
because you're not selling them, you're not
Yeah,
tricking them, and you're just explaining
So
the
many
reality.
times. So many times when you're talking to people, people listen to respond, right? I mean, you hear that a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're well versed enough in what's going on in the conversation,
Yeah.
you don't have to worry about what you're going to say next.
Yeah.
You can actually focus on listening to them
Right.
and figure out what it is that you do that's going to be able to help them what they wanted to achieve.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so the old saying, how you say something is important as what you say, right?
Yep.
So if you can tune in, if you can stop worrying about being intelligent with what comes out of your mouth next, if you can quit worrying about that, then you can start paying attention to what the other person is saying.
Right.
And when you start paying attention to that, that's when the magic happens, right?
So honestly, for agents that are newer, agents looking to grow their business or improve their skills, that subject right there is a topic that when I got into the business and decided to perfect my craft, because I was going to be doing this for a long time, and I might as well just go figure this out and figure out how to do it well,
Yeah.
right? And to keep it as simple as possible without a lot of complexity and stress and so forth. I was very amazed at how many agents, even experienced agents,
yeah.
that I was exposed to that could not answer the question at the end of a listing presentation when the seller said, "Hey, Matt, hey, Ben, great presentation. Let us talk about it, and I'll give you a call in the morning."
Yep.
Yeah.
They didn't even know that. They didn't even have one objection handler for that.
Right.
And I'm thinking to myself, is that not something we're going to hear on a regular basis?
Right.
And that's where I went off and said, all right, let me go figure that. I really need to go figure out the skills to this business.
Why do they need to think about it?
Because I said something in the presentation
exactly-
that confused them and didn't
exactly-
catch the body language throughout and just breezed over it because I was too nervous.
Right.
And I wasn't able to relax. So, so to your point, you really, if you want to do this well, and in any agent that wants to do this at a high level, there's a couple different ways to do it. Either you're in the business long enough and your income builds very slowly that you finally get comfortable and decent at it. You're in the business, one of my old coaches used to say, you can wait 20 years.
Right. That's right. If you can wait that long.
Right? You can wait 20 years and figure it out. Or you can get some advice, and there's plenty of it out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially these days.
Yeah, I'm online. It's all out there. You just need to spend the time and catapult your skills and your knowledge and your comfort quickly within, the learning curve goes like this if you're paying attention.
Yeah.
It's so fast.
So so that's such a good point too about the 20 years, right? So to harp on that for just a second, okay? So everybody has scripts. That's the part that I always laugh whenever somebody says, I don't like scripts. Because the truth is, what you're saying is, I don't want to learn someone else's script. I'm going to use what I'm comfortable saying all the time.
Yeah, and I never want to talk again.
That's right.
I don't want to sound scripted.
That's right. I don't want to sound scripted, or I don't want to trick people, like you said in the beginning. People automatically think that if you're scripting something, that you're this carpetbagger that's tricking them into snake oil.
You're a hardcore salesperson
right
in the 1980s.
That's right. And the truth, right? Coffee's for closers.
Copies for closers. Here, slide the pen over the paper. So they're getting ready to sign. Right.
And the truth is, what they do is, over 20 years, they come up with their own scripts.
That's right.
They figure out
They
what
figure
it
it
is.
out, and then they get good.
Right. And they're like, I said this and I said this on this appointment. I remember this went this way, and then automatically they just get into this groove, and mentally they're going, well, whenever I sit down, I always say this. When I sit down, I always do this.
That's right.
And then they're telling you that they don't believe in scripts. What you're basically saying is, I don't want to take what other people have learned by doing that same exact thing and apply it to my business. I only want to do it my way with my scripts.
Tell yours bad, go broke for 20 years. I didn't have that kind of time.
That's right. I don't think many folks do.
Right?
But you gotta be serious about it. You have to take a real look at it.
So the advice is, take a look at what some of the experts and the gurus have to offer out there. There's plenty of coaching companies, and you can, find their scripts on Google,
Right.
I'm sure.
Yep.
And just read through and maybe develop your own series of questions when you're making that initial phone call to your girlfriend's lead who needs to move to Colorado
Right.
and sell her home. What questions do you need to ask? I mean, there's some logical questions you need to know to be able to take it to the next step.
Absolutely.
And if you don't like this guy's or this gal's series of questions, for the lack of not using the word script, take that one, this one, but why would you start from scratch and reinvent the wheel and try to wing it? I mean,
Yeah.
that's just suicide.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
She's
exactly.
dangerous.
It's financial failure. I mean,
Right.
it's just, we're smarter than that.
Right. Yeah. And think about it, because information is out there so easily for everyone, more and more people are going to lean into being better at what they do because it's less expensive than it's ever been. It's more available than it's ever been,
True.
right?
Yeah.
Bad advice is just as available as good advice, so be careful.
Right.
But there's tons of advice out there. You can listen to all kinds of podcasts and get all types of tips, tricks, and hacks, right? As
Right.
as Ben would say. And so that means the level of play is just going to go up because more people have easier access to it. Don't be the one sitting there getting caught, not being prepared to have
Right.
real conversations with people, right? I mean, I think that's what podcast land needs to hear, if nothing else, in from this conversation.
Yeah, just learn. I mean, another thing I figured out in this business is when you first get into the business, there's so much to learn, and it seems like just a hodgepodge of information. Your mind is spinning, and you've got the listing side and the buyer side and the documentations and
noise. Yeah.
and the noise. There's so much, but try to put things in their category. So on the listing side of the business, you got to learn to find them, right? Then you have to learn to say to land the appointments, and then once you land the appointment, then you go on the listing presentation, and you have to land the listing. Once you have the listing, if it's not selling, and that doesn't happen a lot these days,
Right.
but it will.
That's
so
right.
this
It's
is
coming.
a big skill. We haven't talked a lot about price these days, but
Right.
it's coming.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you got to make sure that it's priced properly, or you have a price reduction
Right.
conversation, or future pacing them, as I was taught to say, getting them ready for that. So it's really a very simple business. You look at the 5 steps. First, I'm going to learn to find them. Then I have the discipline to call them, right? Whether it's a lead or whether it's a cold call or a for sale by owner or whatever you're calling, you have to find them. If you're not finding them, it's the discipline.
Right.
You know that's what you have to work on. Once you find them, and if you're not landing the appointments on the phone, you just have to fix what you're saying on the phone. Go ask your manager. What do I
Right.
say?
Yep.
If your manager doesn't have the answer, go find someone else who has the answer, who knows how to cold call and
Right.
win them.
Right.
Once you get the appointment, you go on the appointment. For me, I fell on my face first 3. I
Right.
went back to my manager crying, like, no, now what do I do? They didn't like me.
I can't imagine
They
you.
kept my
I
money.
wore my new expensive suit, and they still didn't like me. I thought I looked great, and they were going to just list with me.
I thought that's why they listed.
Right?
I'll tell you, I've
How
never
could they
had
not
that
list
feeling.
with me?
I've never had that feeling.
Never had that feeling.
Well, I've had the feeling of not getting the listing. I've never
yeah,
had the
yeah.
feeling of not getting the listing because they didn't like the way I look.
As far as you know, Ben.
I'm more along the lines of like, I got the listing despite
of my look.
of how I look.
It's amazing what goes through our heads in this crazy business. Right?
Exactly.
So again, when you break it down that way, when you categorize this business, the listing side, the steps to be successful on the list side, the buy side, the steps to be successful on the buy side, and learn what to say, and then the documentation. I need to know that over here. I need to know how to get these things closed. And
So let's talk about those 5 steps, right? Let's kind of wrap up with that. Okay, so there's 5 things. So they need to learn how to find the business first.
yeah,
right?
that's the biggest challenge.
Yep. And then after that, they need to learn how to convert the business, right? And then
Get a listing appointment.
get a listing appointment.
Got
And then
one.
and then what do they do? Then they have to be able to work through the
You
contract.
prepare your presentation, then you go to the house, and you're that piece right there is it's showtime.
Yeah.
We rehearse. If you're a dancer growing up, you rehearse all year for the recital.
Right.
You put on your tutu, and you are dancing.
It's go time.
I
Yeah.
had my best tutu on.
That's right, man. I didn't like my pink. Right? That is go time. That is show time. That is go time. And that's when you want to know what you're saying. That's when you're not winging it. You have a format of a presentation. And again, I'm not going to call it a script because a lot of us didn't like that, including me. But if you taught me a format, I go there,
Absolutely.
I greet them, I tour the home, I review their needs, I go over the CMA, and I do the marketing plan. And the last thing I say is, deliver your proceeds at the closing. Matt, are there any other questions?
Right. Yeah. How do you want me
And
to
they
get
look
those
at
to
each
you?
other and they go, no, well, you ready to put me to work for you?
Yeah.
Boom, and you rip out the docs and sign them up.
Right.
It's just not that hard, but you have to have a format.
Absolutely.
You need to categorize. I mean, otherwise, the business becomes a mishmash of
Absolutely. You're thinking someone's
confusion.
qualified
Yeah.
and somebody's not qualified, and you're thinking and you're wondering why your conversation in the closing and all that's not working. Well, they weren't qualified on the front end. They weren't really ready to do it because you didn't ask them simple stuff in the beginning, right?
Yeah, you get there and they say, well, we're going to paint the house first. Or my spouse doesn't have the job yet. We
Right.
just think we might be moving to Colorado. Well, I just spent 4 hours preparing and I put my tutu on. How could you not list with me?
Right.
Guess what? That was my fault. I didn't ask the right
That's
series of
exactly right.
questions.
That's exactly
Yeah.
right.
Right? I learned quickly that the difference between a condition and an objection.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
So a condition is you get to the property, or you're working with a buyer or a seller, and there's some condition that causes them not to be able to act. That's completely out of our control. It's not an objection handling
Absolutely.
situation. That's an objection, right? That you can usually learn
Right.
words to
To get past.
overcome, right? A condition. And if you go on a presentation or you take a buyer out 4 times and then you find out something about their credit, or there was a short sale out there 4 years ago and they're
Right, or
6 months
forbearance.
away,
Right.
or a forbearance, it's, that's our fault.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's our fault for not knowing how to do our job.
Yep.
So you need to learn how to dig in and ask the right series of questions. And I don't mean to go off too far on this, but when you have a conversation with a seller, for example, and you can relax and ask the right questions, as opposed to, yes, I'll be over this afternoon at 2.
Right.
I mean, think about the difference. The seller is going to list with the business person, who, by the way, is probably handling one of their larger assets, if
Right.
not their largest asset,
Right.
that understands the project the most,
Yeah.
who knows how to answer the questions. And they're not going to list with the fast-moving, winging it, skimming over the top with their $200,000
You
equity.
use a great example when you're coaching and training people. You use a great example, the carpet example, right?
Yeah.
Somebody calls up and calls one carpet company and says, "Hey, I need 3 rooms of carpet cleaned. How much is it?" They say it's $99. 3 rooms. We can be there Saturday morning at 10 a.m. We'll be done. The carpet will be dried by late on Saturday. And you're like, "Great. Well, I'm going to call one more person." And the other person says, "You know what? I can do 3 rooms. I can do it for $99 from this time until this time. It's going to be dry at this time. But let me
Same
ask you a
deal.
few questions.
Same
Same
deal.
exact deal.
Yep.
Let me ask you a few questions. Tell me a little bit about the pile in the carpet, or any particular stains that we need to deal with. Right?
Yep.
How many other rooms do you have carpet, and do we need to move furniture?
Do you have pets? And,
Do you have pets?
right? Who are you gonna hire?
The expert.
Yeah, you're gonna get off the phone with the second guy and go, "Oh, that's
No-brainer.
So in our business, the scariest thing for agents often we see is they have a listing opportunity, whether they drummed it up themselves cold or whether it was handed to them from a referral, right? And they don't do any pre-qualifying because, gosh, I'm so afraid if I ask questions, I may not like the answer and they'll say no, and then I can't
Right.
list it,
Yep.
right? And they don't pre-qualify,
Right.
which leaves a bad taste in the seller's mouth
Absolutely.
because we're not digging into their needs.
Right.
It's not about us, guys. It's about them.
100%.
Right? We need to know, what their fears are, what their goals are, what's happening. Are we moving quickly? Are we going long haul for top dollar? What are we doing here? What do
Right.
we, they need to steer it, and they need to know that we understand their needs. So that's just learning what to say, learning to relax, asking the right series of questions. And,
Being practiced enough so you can be in the moment.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But again,
Yeah.
if you ever are in a situation where, you get there and there's a condition,
Yeah.
and it's not, even if you're new, I'm just going to go and see what happens. I'm going to go and just, wing it. I need the practice. Stop that.
Yeah.
No, you don't need the practice. Learn how to do it right. Ask the series of questions.
Absolutely.
Don't waste your time.
That's right. Don't be afraid.
Yeah, don't be afraid.
Yeah.
You're a professional.
That's
Understand what your customers' needs are. It's not about us, guys. It's about them.
Yeah. Look at it like a doctor.
Yeah, the doctor comes in and says, "So tell me, what's wrong, Matt?
That's exactly
Something
right.
about your knee?
Right. So,
Right?
so that way
How
we
did this
can,
happen?
Yep.
How long has it been going on?
because that's a lot to do with how you get the solution, right?
That's exactly
You
right.
need to understand the problem.
Well, we should listen to the doctor on this.
I'm just sitting here enjoying the conversation. I like it.
Anyways, it's truly a simple business. Keep it categorized. Just get good at each little category. Get good at your documents. Get good at your on the list side. Get good at the buy side, and then and keep it very simple. Keep it very simple.
Right.
Learn to generate. That's the biggest thing, is learn to generate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
You won't be afraid anymore.
Yeah.
When I was a realtor, it didn't matter what the market was doing. I knew what I needed to make every year, and I would beef it up and beef it down. As we were approaching college with the kids, I beefed it up for 3 or 4 years and just stockpiled it away so my kids can come out of college with no debt. It was one of my goals.
Right.
And I beefed it up and beefed it down. I just spent another hour searching for deals,
Right.
or another 15 minutes. The accumulation effect of an extra 15 minutes a day instead of an hour 15 was another
Right.
7 or 8 deals a year. That was another 80, 100 grand a year.
Right.
It's really a simple business.
Yeah. No, I love it. And there's so much information,
Yeah.
right? To be shared, and so much information, between your ears right there, that everyone would love to pick, if you're in real estate, and I know I've picked it several times. And I think we should bring that into, another podcast as well. Would that be cool if we had you on again?
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not sure how much more I have to share, but I'll try.
No, trust me, we all know that there's tons. So before I wrap this up and put a little bow on it, as I like to say, I'm going to ask you one little question, and and you just tell me, I think maybe this or that.
Maybe.
Give us one nugget. If I'm an agent who struggles with listings, and I want to say, gosh, I'm just tired of doing showings all the time. I want to get into listings. Tell me one single thing, the best nugget that you have of what I should be doing to get into becoming a better listing agent.
So have we found the deal yet?
No.
Haven't found it yet.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's going nowhere without finding it.
Yep.
Yep.
It's going nowhere without finding it.
Yep.
So it's this is not news. I wish I had some
No. Well, this is exactly why I asked the
aha
question.
moment. It's just really about the discipline of drafting your business plan and defining. Well, I'll use the word buckets.
Mm-hmm.
Defining where you're going to look for business on a regular basis, and be sure if you do an annual business plan, that's great. That's goals. That's exciting. You have to break it down, whether you go quarterly, monthly, weekly, daily, because it's really, nothing's going to happen without habits.
Yeah.
It's establishing, maybe that's the tidbit. It's establishing the habit, and maybe and the discipline does get away from willpower.
Yeah.
In time.
Absolutely. It has to.
Right?
Yeah.
It gets away from willpower. It grows to it's a habit that I spend some time every day. And for me, it was always the morning. I'm a morning person. I'm powerful in the morning.
yeah.
I felt people were more receptive in the morning. You get me in the afternoon, and I was much.
Yeah, it's just different. Yeah.
I was lazier. I'll admit, I'm just human like the rest of us. I needed to define that time. So it was establishing a habit, Ben. And once, and it, they say a habit comes about in 17 to 21 days.
Yeah.
It
That's
took
quick.
It took me a few months to get
Habits that you
really
enjoy.
okay with this habit.
Yeah.
But when I started seeing this, these nice,
The results.
these results, these interesting checks, and there was 1 a month and 2 a month and 3 or 4 a month, and And then I realized the number of checks that were handed to me a month was a direct correlation to the number of minutes I was practicing this new habit of talking to people. Then it became, oh, okay, I'm home free, right?
Yeah.
And here's one last thing. The mindset switched when I was doing this habit from this is what I do every day to this is who I am
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah.
This is just, if somebody said, who's Lorna Short? Oh, she's that chick that prospects a lot
Right.
and calls a lot of for sale by owners and expired listings and is always killing it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I didn't purposely create that, but that's
Absolutely,
that's
yeah.
what it evolved to.
Right.
But that was who I am.
Right.
Yeah, right. I'm in the beginning it was out of fear. Then it became ego. Now and then it was about winning. In the
Right.
beginning it was
Yeah.
fear. I needed to make a ton of money.
Right.
Right. And then it became ego. I like how much more can I win? Right.
Right.
That was really fun. So it evolved. It
Yeah.
evolved and it's
so
continuing
cool.
to evolve over the years.
Yeah.
But perhaps it's establishing the habit and convincing yourself it's just who you are.
Yeah.
You just keep it simple. It's just who you are. You're a winner. You're going to go out there and do a really great job in real estate. There's nothing stopping you. You're going to learn how to do it right. And it's just that darn simple.
Yeah.
It's really not that hard.
Yeah, I love it. Are you hearing that, guys? Discipline, consistency, and habits. Go figure.
Right.
I bet you've talked about that before.
Yeah, exactly.
But people need to hear it.
Yeah. No,
People
that,
need to hear
Yeah,
it.
by the way, this business is so simple that if you're at your own company doing a training class and you hear your manager or someone in the class teaching say something you've heard before, don't humph. Don't get up and walk away.
Yeah.
Because unless you have that
Well, let me jump in here for
Nailed.
just a second. Unless you're freaking doing it, sit your ass right there
That's
and figure
right.
out why
Yeah.
you're not doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what you're going to find, and to the point that this business is super simple, there's only so many topics in this business to learn.
That's right.
Like, here's an example. You get in the business and you're all worried about objections. You know, the seller said this, or the seller's going to say that, or the seller's going to say, what do I say? What do I do?
Right.
What do I do? And they say, you know, my competitor could do it for 4%, and you're there
Right.
trying to get 6, right?
Yeah.
So just define it. There's really maybe 5 objections: commission, price. I want to think about it. I have a friend in the business and I only want to give you a 30-day listing.
Yeah.
It's really not that hard. Go figure out 2 or 3 objection handlers for
That's
that.
right.
Go learn them, and you're done.
3 of them is 60% of the listings
that-
you're going to come across.
That'll raise your ratio of listing presentation to listings taken probably 20% right there just by like having that down.
Absolutely.
It's really not hard. Keep it simple.
Absolutely.
That's like a whole category. Just learn your objection handlers, and trust me, it'll take away a lot of fear.
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
I like that a lot. Guys, keep everything simple. You know what else is really simple? Following our podcast. If you're listening to this on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Deezer, any of those platforms, make sure you hit that follow button. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that red subscribe button, that bell right beside of it. You get notified every time we drop a new episode. Go check us out and sign up for our monthly newsletter at brokersopenpodcast.com. We would absolutely love to have you be a part of our community and our Brokers Open Podcast family. Lorna, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
For reaching out, and guys, we'll put some contact information about Lorna if you want to reach out and maybe pick her brain a little bit more. That would be absolutely spectacular. Would that be okay?
Sure.
And
Yeah.
they can send referrals as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got
Some referrals. Come to my office. I'll hire you up, train you up, get you going.
That's
There you go.
that's exactly
There's
right.
that too.
That's exactly right. So, Matt,
Yeah.
when it comes to Brokers Open Podcast,
Yeah, Ben.
it is not just about open houses.
It's about open minds.